All right, let's go ahead and get started. All right, good evening, everybody. My name is Carla Carter. I'll be the host for tonight's Basics and Foundations class hosted by Meridian Soul School of the Highest Learning. We're going to go ahead and kick it off with a prayer. Let's see. Who can lead us in prayer? Vanessa, do you mind leading us in prayer tonight? No. Can you hear me, Vanessa? Are you able to unmute yourself?
Okay, I got it. I'm here.
Okay.
Let us all
Okay,
bow.
you can lead us in prayer.
Let us all bow our hearts and minds in prayer, please. Our dear Heavenly Father Yahweh, we thank you for allowing us to assemble in this manner to hear of your divine purpose and plan. Father, if it's your will, lead and guide us, feed us with your knowledge and understanding and righteousness so we may grow closer unto thee. Father, we know and understand that the defect is not yours, it's that of the children. Father, we ask that you purge our hearts, our minds, so that we can follow you in righteousness, giving all glory and honor unto thee, for you are the only one that is worthy. These and all blessings we ask in your Son's name, Yahshua the Messiah. Let us all say hallelujah.
Hallelujah. All right, thank you very much for that. All right, class. So for those of you who are not familiar with the Basics and Foundations class or haven't been with us for a while, what we've done over the past several classes, we began at Moses and we started reading in order. So we started at the third chapter of Exodus, because that's where Yahweh first introduced himself to Moses and gave Moses his name. So we started in the order that the Bible was actually written. And so we started at the third chapter of Exodus at the burning bush, and we read all the way to the 24th chapter of Exodus and the 16th verse where it says, and the cloud covered it 6 days. This is after the second trip that Moses went up into the top of the Mount Sinai, and Yahweh gave him a vision. He was up there for 40 days and 40 nights. And so we, after the 24th chapter, 16th verse of Exodus, we went back to Genesis, the first chapter, to pick up what Moses saw the 7 days of creation as part of those 40 days and 40 nights. And we went back to Exodus and finished the 24th chapter and read all the way over to the 34th chapter of Exodus after Moses came down on the mount and when Moses got ready to go back up into the mount on the third trip. And on the third trip is when we went back to Genesis, the second chapter, and read all the way to Exodus, the second chapter. And then we're to pick it back up at the 35th chapter or 34th chapter of Exodus and keep on reading on through. So we've read all the way till we got to Exodus, the second chapter. And so we're going to do a recap tonight. And so we're going to have 10 minutes. So whoever goes first can start at Exodus, the third chapter. Now tonight we're going to do events only. We're not going to correlate and do any extra correlation. We just want to pick it up from the third chapter of Exodus and go as far as you can in order of the events that happened as much as you can remember anyway. And then the next person picks up wherever the first person left off, pick up whatever they forgot, and keep on moving and see how far we can get to Exodus, the second chapter, in the order that we've read it. So who wants to kick it off first? Starting at the third chapter of Exodus and whatever events you remember going all the way through. You have 10 minutes. I'm going to stop you in the middle of a sentence, in the middle of whatever you're saying, and say stop. So that 10 minutes is up for the next person to pass the baton. And I can actually call it by name, if you guys want to do it that way. But rather you guys do it in order. However you guys see fit to do it, though. So who wants to go first? Exodus, the third chapter. Starting there.
I'll go first.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Leon.
So, in Exodus, the third chapter, from what I could remember, so it started off with Yahweh introducing himself in like a burning bush to Moses. And that was when Moses was like, he turned aside and he saw the burning bush, and that's when I realized he saw that he got his attention. That's when he called Moses, and pretty much that's when Yahweh introduced himself to Moses, and he introduced him to Moses in Mount Sinai. And I'm sorry, I'm trying to oh yeah, that's when he said he found out what was, happening in Egypt, and how he wanted him to get out of the land of Egypt because he saw what Pharaoh was doing to them. And and that's when he told Moses to, I'm sorry, I'm trying to get my thoughts together. Like each of it. Yeah, so to deliver them out of Egypt from the Egyptians to a good land, which is a large land that's flowing with milk and honey. And, he wanted Moses to show I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. Oh yeah, then that's when Moses was like, who am I? Why should I go to Pharaoh and bring the children out of children of Israel out of Egypt? And Yah was telling him that he was gonna be with him, and he wanted Moses to serve Yahweh to the mountain that they were in right now, which was Mount Sinai. Moses was kind of like asking more questions, and was like why should it be me? And what if the children of Israel ask, what's your name? And Yahweh was like, Aya Asher Aya, which means I will be what I will to be. So overall, Yahweh was telling Moses, once he talks to Pharaoh, to tell him to let them go and go to a 3-day journey in the wilderness. And Yahweh was telling Moses that Pharaoh wasn't going to listen to him. So once he don't, Yahweh will stretch out his hand and smite all of Egypt with all of his wonders. And after that, he'll let you go once he do that. Once they leave, Yahweh was like, don't go empty-handed, bring jewels of gold, silver, and raiment. And then that was pretty much it for Exodus, the 3rd chapter. But moving on to Exodus, the 4th chapter, it started off with Moses still had no faith in Yahweh, and he was saying, that they wouldn't believe him, and that they say Yahweh hasn't appeared to us. And Yahweh asked Moses about the rod in his hand, and that's what Yahweh told Moses to cast it down to the ground, and that's when it became a serpent. And Yahweh told him to grab it by its tail, and it became a rod again. So that's like Yahweh was like, they should believe you with that just happening. And Yahweh, he continues to show more proof through Moses. And the second one was, he told Moses to put his hand in his bosom, and when he took it out, he took it out of his bosom, he looked at his hand, and it was like the leopards of snow. And he said, put it again, and went back to his regular hand. And if they still don't believe Moses, Yahweh told Moses to take that rod and to take the water off the river and pour it into the dry land, and the water that was taken out of the river should become blood upon the dry land. And that was like another proof to show, that Yahweh's real. And basically he still kept complaining to Yahweh, and that's all I can remember from right there.
Okay. Perfect. Awesome. All right. Who wants to pick up where Leonie left off?
I will, Carla.
Okay.
Going back to where she was over there in the beginning of the 3rd chapter, you see how that Moses was in the wilderness after having fled the land of Egypt, as she stated, and he was at a bush that was burning, and the bush was not being consumed. And Moses heard a voice call him by name. And we know by vision and revelation that it was Yahweh that was calling unto him. And again, he called him by name and said, Moses, Moses. And Moses answered. And Moses turned aside to see why the bush burned, but it was not being consumed. And Yahweh spoke unto him and told him that he had seen the afflictions of his people that were in Egypt, and he had heard their cry by reason of their taskmasters. And he said, I am come down to deliver them out of that land, out of the hands of the Egyptians, and to bring them unto a land flowing with milk and honey. And it was a large land. And so Moses, and Yahweh told Moses that he was going to send him back down into the land of Egypt. And he said, and when you have brought forth my people out of the land of Egypt, you shall serve me upon this mountain. That caused Moses to have questions. And so he asked Yahweh, when I go back down into the land of Egypt, and they shall ask me who sent you, who shall I tell them sent me? And that's when Yahweh declared his name unto Moses. And he told them, you tell them Yahweh, the Elohim of your fathers, the Elohim of Abraham and the Elohim of Isaac, have appeared unto you and have sent you. And tell them Ayah, Asher, Ayah, which means I will be what I will to be. Yahweh went on to demonstrate to Moses that he was just that. He willed to be whatever he willed to be. And he told Moses that when he go back down there, that Pharaoh would not let them go but by a mighty hand. So he demonstrated, because Moses made up excuses that he couldn't speak plain and that he had killed a man. When he said that he couldn't speak plain, he said, I know your brother Aaron speak eloquently, and lo, he is on his way out to meet thee. Moses said, I have killed a man. Yahweh said, all that sought your life, they are dead. So he demonstrated to Moses that he will be what he will to be by telling Moses to take the rod that he had in his hand and to cast it on the ground. When he did, the rod changed into a serpent. Yahweh instructed Moses to pick it up by the tail. He picked it up by the tail and it changed back into the rod again. He then told Moses to cast his hand into his bosom and pluck it out. When he did, it was leprous. He told him to put it back in and pluck it out again. and it was as his other flesh. Yahweh said, if they don't believe the voice of these two signs, then you take a basin, dip it in the river Nile, and pour it on the ground, and it will change to blood. So when Moses got his wife and sons and was ready to leave out of the wilderness where he was, Yahweh had his brother Aaron to come out to meet him. And he told him that Moses would be, it was like the law and the prophets going back down. Oh, you said don't correlate. But anyway, Aaron came out to meet Moses, and the two of them went to the wilderness, or went to back down into the land of Egypt, and they met with the elders as Yahweh had instructed them, told them what thus saith Yahweh. And then they had to go to Pharaoh and tell Pharaoh what thus saith Yahweh. Now, Yahweh had told Moses that Israel would come up out of the land by a mighty hand. So when Moses and Aaron went to Pharaoh and demonstrated the signs that Yahweh had given them to demonstrate, then Pharaoh called out his magicians and sorcerers. So when Moses cast down his rod and it changed into a serpent, Jannes and Jambres cast down their rods and it changed into a serpent. But Moses' rod swallowed up theirs. So they didn't have anything. So then that didn't faze Pharaoh, because it went on with the signs that when Yahweh told them that if they don't believe the voice of these two signs, then you take that basin, dip it in the river Nile, and pour it upon the ground, and it changed to blood. That was the beginning of the plagues. They did that. Then Pharaoh would call Moses, take this plague off, and I'll let Israel go. So Moses was going and talking unto Yahweh. And Yahweh would tell Moses, give him his instructions, and Moses would go back to Pharaoh. This transpired all the way up to the 10 devastating plagues, until the end of the 10 devastating plague. And on that 10th plague, which was stinging black darkness, Yahweh had told Moses to whisper in the ears of Israel, tell them to take out a lamb. They were to examine that lamb. He was to be without spot and blemish. It had to be a male lamb of the first year. So they did as they were instructed. They had to bleed. They had to kill that lamb, bleed him, take the blood, put it on the top of the doorpost, 2 side posts, and dip him from a basin. For the Passover angel was going to pass over. All that had the blood, as Yahweh had instructed, the death angel would pass over. But if they did not have the blood, then that death angel went in and slew the firstborn of man and beast. Pharaoh's son was killed in that death decree. Yahweh had told Moses, you instruct Israel, tell them to have their loins girded, their kneading boards on their back, their shoes on their feet, for we coming out in haste. They had to spoil the Egyptians. They had to take the silver, the gold. They had everything that they needed. So when they started up out of Egypt, then Pharaoh was like, now who's going to build my treasure houses? So they got after, he got all his horsemen, his chariots, and everything, and they pursued after Israel. Israel got to the Red Sea. They saw Pharaoh and his host behind them. They had warring nations in the mountains on the side of them, and the Red Sea in front of them. So they started crying and complaining about they were better off in the land of Egypt. So Yahweh, this Joshua or Oshia, whose real name is Oshia, no J, no Jesus. So Oshia had manifested in the land of Egypt with them, with Israel. He was there with them. He was their savior back then. So told Moses, what's that you got in your hand? A rod. Hold it up. When Moses held up the rod, then the Red Sea was divided. Yahweh caused an east wind to go through, blow the ground dry, so that Israel went through on dry ground and crossed over to the other side. When they got out there in the wilderness, Israel was still murmuring and complaining about having been better off when they were in Egypt, when they were crying and murmuring about the taskmasters that was over them, the oppression that they felt. So Yahweh rained down manna for them to eat. Then they cried and complained about the manna. Yahweh caused the quail to fly low so that they could eat. So they had bread, they had meat, but Israel was still murmuring and complaining. Yahweh gave them shoes that never wore out, clothes that never rotted or waxed old, but Israel was not content. Yahweh spoke to Moses, called him up into the mountain, told him to come up alone and by himself. So Moses got up and his minister Joshua rose up with him. 73 of the elders went, but the 73 elders had to tarry on the plateau of the mount, but Moses alone had to go into the mount to meet with Yahweh. When Yahweh spake to Moses, well, first he had told Moses to tell Israel to clean up.
I'm sorry. Pause. You didn't even hear me. I was saying pause. Sorry. Your 10 minutes is up. Very good. You got all the way to the 24th chapter. That's awesome. I'm sure whoever's next probably, somebody probably pick up some things that were left out. Who wants to go next? I'm sure Kobe probably want to pick up some plates. Who wants to go next? Pick up anything she left out and then keep going. Okay, Kobe.
No, I wasn't volunteering.
I could go real quick, I guess. Go ahead.
Oh, I thought Kobe was going. No, I thought Kobe was going to lead to the plague. That's fine. Okay, you go ahead.
Okay. Let me see. Well, let me kind of backtrack and pick up just a couple things. It's going to be hard to pick up everything, but I'll pick up a couple things. Well, Yahweh, he told Moses when they arrived to Mount Sinai, he told them to clean up and for 3 days. Take 3 days to clean up, can't go in into your wives and whatnot. Sorry, Micah, I don't know if you're gonna let me do this. But he told them to clean up and not go into your wives and whatnot. He would speak the law to them, right? And then I'm sorry, just come back to me.
Okay. Poor Micah, bless his little heart. He's just good. All right. Anybody else want to go next?
No, I think I got him. 7.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
No,
so he told him to come into the mount to clean up for 3 days and this, that, and the other. He was going to speak the law to him. So that's Moses' first trip, right? He told him, and he spoke the law to him or whatnot. And thou shalt not, commit adultery and so forth and so on. And he spoke law and statutes to him, right? Second trip is what Vanessa, she had covered as well, talking about, how he went up to he was called into the mountain. He would bring up 2 tables of stone, right? And then, and Yahweh will write the law on those 2 tables of stone, right? The 10 Commandment law. And So Moses went up, his minister, Joshua, or Joshua, the son of Nun, and also the 70 elders, along with Aaron, Nadab, and Abihu, right? And they saw the Elohim of Israel, right? They saw his body, they saw his hands, they saw, feet, they saw the body of heaven in its clearness, actually, as it's written, right? And Moses, he went up there, and he was up there for 40 days and 40 nights. And during his 40 days and 40 nights, the first 6 days, as it talks about in the cloud abode upon Mount Sinai, right? 6 days, right? So during those first 6 days, Yahweh, that's where the book of Genesis begins. And Yahweh is showing Moses a rerun of how he created the heavens and the earth. He slowed it down for Moses over a period of 6 days, right? And on the first day, second day, third day, fourth day, and I'll fast forward through all that, as it's reading the book of Genesis, and there you have it. And then he called him out, and he rested on the Sabbath day, which is the seventh day. And then over the next 33 days, that he was up there for 40 days and 40 nights in the mount, he showed Moses the tabernacle pattern, right? He showed him it according to the pattern, just as he showed him the creation according to the pattern, how everything came into existence, how Yahweh created everything. He showed Moses the tabernacle pattern over those next 33 days. Fast forward through all the things that he showed them, the furnishings, the vessels, all of that, right? Now, meanwhile, when Moses went up into the cloud, Aaron, Nadab, Abihu, and the 70 elders, they assumed that Moses was dead. So they went back down to the base of the mount, and they didn't tarry here and wait for us as they were instructed to. They went down to the base of the mount, and they told Aaron to make them God so they can worship it, and this, that, and the other. And Aaron told them to give me the gold from your earrings and this, that, and the other. And he made a golden calf, right? And they worshiped this, that, and the other. So they're worshiping this golden calf. Yahweh calls Moses out of the mount, of the cloud, out of the cloud on top of the mount. And he said, there's a noise in the camp. There's not a noise of war, but people doing stuff that they shouldn't, and they were down at the base of the mount having an orgy and acting the stone cold fool. So Moses, in his anger, he had those tables of stone that he came down with, that was written, that Yahweh wrote the commandments on, the 10 Commandments on. Moses threw those tables of stone down and broke them, right? And then Moses, he made them grind up that golden calf that they worshiped, and they mingled it, I think, with water, and made them drink all that the gold and whatnot associated with it. I'll keep going. Mike is back paying attention to the tablet. So Yahweh calls Moses up for a third time. So we've covered the first, second, now this is the third time, right? And Moses is going back up there for another 40 days and 40 nights. And then this time he goes back, not over the days of creation, but back to the Garden of Eden, which was in the initial 6 days that he showed Moses initially, right? He goes back to the Garden of Eden because in the first time he went, or the second time he went up, when he showed them the creation by the pattern, he saw that the fall of mankind with Adam and Eve partaking of the fruit. But then in the second time, the third time he goes up, he shows him what happened with Satan, how he came to the garden and he deceived Eve, right? And Adam willingly died for his bride. And Moses not only saw the, how they were deceiving this, that, and the other, but Yahweh showed him all the way down to the Messiah and beyond, all the way from the beginning to the end. Moses saw everything, right? So, and he saw the book of life. He saw the book of life on his second trip because he told him to blot my name out of the book, this, that, and the other, because he was trying to intercede, on behalf of the people. But Moses saw everything, right? And then he had an understanding, and he was so enlightened that his face literally and physically had shined. It was light illuminating from him, to which when he came down, the people were, they were afraid in a way. And when he came down, he put a veil on his face, and he would wear that veil around the people. But when he would go into the, in the meeting tent, he would take it off when he was communing and conversing with Yahweh. And I'll cut it off there, I guess.
All right, very good, very good. Anybody else? Before anybody, I'm gonna pick up a couple of things. I'm gonna go back all the way back to the third chapter of Exodus. Let me see what my time is. I'm gonna start my time now. All right, so in the third chapter of Exodus, this is where Yahweh, the angel of Yahweh called him to Moses out of the burning bush when he was on the backside of Mount Sinai, tending to his father-in-law's sheep. And then the angel of Yahweh called unto him by name. When Yahweh saw that he turned aside, Yahweh called him by name and spoke to him. The bush was burning, not being consumed, and Moses turned aside to see the bush fire wasn't being burned up. That's when Yahweh called him by name and introduced himself, said, I'm the Elohim of your father Amram. I'm the Elohim of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. I am come down to deliver the children of Israel up out of Egypt. Moses had killed a man prior to that. And so Moses had some excuses. Now, well, who am I that I should go down? And Yahweh said, well, certainly I will be with thee. That's important. And so he said, this shall be a token unto you. When you bring them up out of Egypt, you're going to serve me on this mountain. Moses had other excuses. I can't speak plain, so forth and so on. So Yahweh said, who made man's mouth, Moses? Did I not make the dumb and the blind, blah, blah, blah? Your brother Aaron, he speaks eloquently. He's on his way out to meet you. And by the way, I know what you're thinking. All those that sought your life are dead. Moses didn't really say anything about the man that he killed, but Yahweh knew it. And so Yahweh said it to him. All that sought your life are dead. And so Yahweh, Moses asked him, so when I go down there and say the Elohim of our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob sent me unto you to the children of Israel, they're going to ask me what's his name. What shall I say to them? So Yahweh gave him his name. After he said, Ai, Asher, Ai, I will be what I will to be. And then he demonstrated, I will be what I will to be at the bush as well, and told Moses, gave him those three signs that have already been gone over. Now, before he went down, when they were in the way at the end, the angel of Yahweh was getting ready to kill Moses because he had not circumcised his son. And so his wife circumcised his son through the bloody flesh down and said, surely you're a bloody husband, that demands blood, and his life was spared. Him and Aaron go down to Egypt. Yahweh tells him to tell Pharaoh, look, tell Pharaoh to let my son Israel go, or I'm going to kill his son, even his firstborn. But know for sure, he's not going to let him go but by a mighty hand. I'm going to cast judgment on all of those guys down in Egypt, and that's what Yahweh did. So Yahweh put 10 devastating plagues on Egypt, like we've already talked about. The last plague was the plague of death, the death angel passing over. And so this is where Yahweh established the month Abib with the children of Israel. He said, this should be the beginning of months with you, the month Abib, and they had to take the lamb out on the 10th of April, which is corresponds to our April, and hold it over to the 14th. Had to bleed the lamb, take the blood of the lamb, and strike the top of the doorpost, two sides different from the facing, give you 4 points of blood. Then they had to have the roast lamb, bitter herbs, and unleavened bread. And like it was said, those that did not have the blood on the door, death angel came and killed the firstborn son of man and beast in Egypt. And at midnight, the Egyptians, they thrust the children of Israel out, and they had to leave out in haste. And so they spoiled the Egyptians and had the gold, the raiment, the purple, the scarlet, the blue, the silver, the brass, all the things they would need to build the tabernacle. And so they went out, and Yahweh took them specifically by way of the Red Sea because Yahweh had something going on. So when they got there, then Yahweh put the thought in Pharaoh's heart, who's going to be my treasure cities? And so it was told to him where Israel was. And so he went in hot pursuit behind them. Yahweh told Moses to hold his rod. The Red Sea was parted. Yahweh dried the ground overnight, had the east wind coming to dry the ground, and he stood between them. The cloud stood between them and the Egyptians. And then when they went through, Israel went through on dry ground. Egypt, the Egyptians tried to do the same. Yahweh killed them in the Red Sea, and then Israel was over into the wilderness. Yahweh is testing and proving them in the wilderness as well. During that process, they murmured and complained about being hungry. Yahweh rained down manna from heaven, and he gave them specific instructions about the manna. This is important too. And so he said, gather the manna and don't let any stay over the next day. Otherwise, it's going to breed worms. On the sixth day, get a double portion, because it will not, I will not rain down manna on the seventh day or the Sabbath day. This is the Sabbath to keep it holy, because in 7 days, Yahweh created the heavens and the earth. Now, at this time, Moses had not seen that yet in the vision. This is, I think, in the 17th chapter of Exodus, but Yahweh told him to, keep the seventh day or the Sabbath day holy, and so they could do no work, so they couldn't pick up any manna and things like that. That's important too. So as they're going to and through the wilderness and being tried and tested by Yahweh, on June 3rd, Yahweh told Moses, this is the first trip in the 19th chapter of Exodus. He had him on the plateau of the mount, told him to tell the children of Israel to clean up. In 3 days, he would speak to them. And so they had to clean up. And then 3 days later, June 6th, he spoke down the law to them. And part of that law was remember the Sabbath. He could not say remember the Sabbath had not he already told them that with the manna and the seventh day and things like that back in, I think, the 16th chapter of Exodus, so forth and so on. So we got that covered. So then this is the Yahweh speaking the law down to them. 24th chapter of Exodus, after Yahweh gives them the laws and the judgments and things like statutes and things like that on how to behave themselves, Yahweh told Moses to come up alone and by himself into the top of the mount, and also bring Aaron, Nadab, Abihu, 70 of the elders of Israel. And then they all saw the Elohim of Israel. They described what they saw. Those of the plateau of the mount did not see anything, but the 73 people, they did see Elohim. Moses went up alone and by himself with his minister Joshua to the top of the mount. He was there for 40 days and 40 nights. This is where you pick up Genesis, the first chapter, and you see the 7 days of creation that Yahweh showed Moses in 7 days, how he actually created the creation by the pattern. The other 33 days, he turned his attention to the tabernacle, so forth and so on. He showed him the book of life and gave him the 10 Commandment law that was written on the table of stone. When Moses came down out of the mount, Yahweh told him, get thee down, because the people have corrupted themselves and gone quickly out of the way. Joshua, the son of Nun, said, I hear a noise of war in the camp, not of master being overcome, but I hear a noise of singing and dancing. And so Moses saw the golden calf. He broke the table of stones at the base of the mount. That's very important. So then, after that happened, Moses told Aaron, like, what's going on, blah, blah, blah. He made them drink it, like the last person said, so forth and so on. And then after that happened, Yahweh told Moses, after some things transpired, Yahweh told Moses to come up and hew out 2 more tables of stone, just like the first one, and he's going to write the same law on it, but he had to come up alone by himself. Nobody could even be around the mountain the third trip. Moses goes into the third trip, and this is where Yahweh shows him in those 40 days and 40 nights, Genesis, the second chapter. And so the first chapter, he left off with seeing Yahweh created the man out of the dust of the ground. Second chapter, now he sees where Yahweh had given Adam the law of all the trees of the garden is free to eat. And when the midst, don't touch that one. And in the day you touch, you shall surely die to death. Then he saw Yahweh take the woman out of the man. And then he saw Satan deceive the woman. And he saw Adam willingly die for her. And after they fell in their conscience, now they had Cain and Abel. Moses also saw where Cain killed his brother Abel, because Yahweh accepted Abel's sacrifice and not Cain's sacrifice. After that happened, Yahweh cursed the ground for Adam's sake because of the transgression, but he cursed Cain and put the mark of the beast on Cain, 666. Anybody that touched him, Yahweh was going to have to deal with them. So forth and so on. He would be a vagabond and a wanderer. And so then later on, Yahweh gave Adam Seth to replace Abel. And you had the sons of Elohim and you had the daughters of men. The sons of Elohim went to the daughters of men, and men became evil, and evil continued. They began to multiply. At the end of that age, Noah came, and Yahweh said that he was going to be the comforter that was going to restore the land back to them to be able to, so forth and so on. So Yahweh gave Noah a vision and said it was going to rain, and he was going to destroy the world by flood. Noah believed Yahweh, and by faith, he built an ark to the saving of his household. He told everybody, he warned the people They did not believe him. The only ones that believed him was his family, Mrs. Noah, Shem, Ham, Japheth, Mrs. Shem, Ham, and Japheth, and those 8 people went into the ark. Yahweh gathered all the animals 2 by 2, 7 of the queens, and they all went into the ark. It did rain for 40 days and 40 nights. And after the water abated, they came out of the ark. Yahweh told them to be fruitful and multiply again. Get this place, got 2 minutes. Be fruitful and multiply again and replenish the earth. And so at this time, Moses sees where Noah got drunk and passed out. His younger son Ham saw that he had passed out and looked up on his nakedness, got his 2 brothers and thought that they were going to laugh at him too. But Shem and Japheth took a cover and walked backwards and covered Noah up. Noah woke up, knew what his son Ham had did. He said, "Cursed be Canaan, Ham's son, because of what Ham had done." And so from that point forward, all of Ham's descendants were cursed. So the Canaanites, after the Canaanites, you had the Hittites and the Egyptians, all the Canaanites and the Philistines and the Egyptians and Sodom and Gomorrah, all those came from the lineage of Ham. Shem, you had the Jews coming from Shem. Japheth, you had the Gentiles coming from Japheth. Yahweh said that Elohim will persuade Japheth to dwell in the same tent with Shem, and so forth and so on. So then after you have them multiply, then you have Abraham coming forth from the lineage of Shem. Yahweh told Abram to get thee out of thy country, of working thy kindred, unto a place that I will show thee. And then at that point, he went to Canaan land. Some things transpired in the 15th chapter of Genesis. Yahweh gave Abraham a promise. Abraham said, "Yahweh, what will you give me, seeing that I go childless? The steward of my house is Eleazar of Damascus. I don't have a seed to give this inheritance to." Yahweh promised him that he was going to give him a seed in his old age, give him a seed that was going to be out of his own bowels, and that he was going to give his seed that land. He's going to multiply seed as the sands of the sea, stars of heaven. And he gave him Ishmael first by Hagar, because Sarah was barren. And then when Abraham, that's 75 years old, he gave that promise. At the age of 99, Abraham had to be circumcised, and Yahweh gave Abraham the covenant of circumcision. Goodness gracious, I got 15 minutes, 15 seconds. Gave him the covenant of circumcision, and then said every male from that point forward, all the Hebrews had to be circumcised at the age of 8 days old. Later on, at the next year, when he turned 100 years old, he gave him Isaac, the promise seed, with his wife Sarah, that Yahweh promised him when he was 100 years old and Sarah was 90 years old, past the age of giving birth to a child. And I'll stop there. All right. Whew. Anybody else want to go next? Pick me up where Abraham had Isaac. Did I miss anything? Did y'all catch if I missed anything or not?
That sounds pretty thorough.
Okay, that was quick in 2 minutes. All right, cool. Who wants to go next and pick up the birth of Isaac? My child is so loud. I know you can't go, babe. Micah is loud. Anybody else who wants to go next? Leonie, Marcia, Kim, Vanessa, Uncle Eugene, Dave. Who else we got on? Toby. Anybody want to pick up where I left off with Isaac? It ain't like y'all don't know the story. Don't play with me. I know y'all know the story. If you missed something, so what? Just do it in order. We're at Isaac. Uncle Eugene,
saying we can go again?
Yeah, you can go again. Yeah.
Okay. Starting with the birth of Isaac, as she said, Yahweh had made a promise to Abraham that he would give him a seed, and that Eleazar of his house was not to be his heir, but he would give him a seed out of his own bowels, and that he will multiply his seed as the stars of heaven and as the sands of the sea. And Abraham asked Yahweh, "Whereby shall I know that you're going to do this?" So Yahweh gave Abraham things that he was to do. He was to get the turtle doves. He was to offer up those sacrifices that Yahweh had told him to offer up. And he told him to know of a surety that his seed would go into a land that was not theirs and be placed in bondage for a period of 400 years, after which time our Yahweh will come in and deliver them. So he had Isaac, and Yahweh appeared unto Isaac, or unto Abraham, and told him to offer up his son, his only begotten son, at the place that I will show you. So Abraham take Isaac, and they are on a journey going to the place where Yahweh had showed him. In Genesis, the 22nd chapter, it talks about how Yahweh appeared unto him. And it said, Abraham offered up his son, his only begotten son, Isaac, whom he loved. So it wasn't like he didn't love his son, but it was about his obedience to Yahweh. So they go on this 3 days journey to the place that Yahweh had showed him. And Isaac said, Father, I see the wood and I see the fire, but where is the sacrifice? And Abraham said, my son, Yahweh will provide himself a sacrifice. So he goes to offer up Isaac, and there is a ram that's caught in the thicket by its horns. And that ram was offered up in the stead of Isaac. But Abraham had told his servants, tarry ye here for us until I and the lad return unto thee. So he goes up to offer him up. Again, Yahweh have this ram caught in the thicket. So you see, as time goes on, Isaac has Jacob and Esau. And when Rebekah was pregnant, she was pregnant with the twins, and she asked, what manner of people is this? And there were two nations that was warring in her womb. And you see that when they were being born, that, I think I'm saying this right, Jacob caught hold of Esau's heel, because Yahweh had said the elder shall serve the younger. And you see, as they grow older, and now Jacob is looking for a wife. And so he goes and he works for Rachel, who he really wanted, 7 years. And you see that her father seemingly deceived him after he had worked those 7 years, but he didn't give him Rachel, he gave him Leah. So he worked yet 7 other years so that he could get the wife that he wanted. And there were things that transpired, and you see how that Yahweh was with him, that when they were doing the cattle and the goats and the sheep and all of that, you see how that Yahweh made his substance to multiply. Now, bear in mind, he had already told Abraham that he would multiply and they would have great substance. So all of this is transparent, and we're seeing it as it go along. So then there is, when he gets ready to he has children, and you see that there, just like it was with Abraham and Sarah and Hagar, there was some mocking that was going on, because even with Hagar, she began to mock Sarah because she had given Abraham a seed. And then Yahweh said that Ishmael was not the seed that was promised, because Yahweh in turn told Abraham, you have a seed of your own bowel. So, where we can't do correlations and stuff. But anyway, so Jacob get Rachel to wife. And so the children grow, and Yahweh changed Jacob's name to Israel. And now it's important that we keep in mind that there was a change in his name. So his name is changed from Jacob to Israel, or from Jacob to Israel. And Yahweh is establishing his purpose and plan with them. So when Jacob or Israel got ready to pour out the blessing, I got this all messed up. Nope, I'm gonna stop right there because I'm messing up them names. I am messing up them names. I am backtracking them names so bad.
I got you. All right. Anybody want to go next? Pick up anything that we missed? I saw a lot that I missed. I sure wish Michael would shut up so you can go. I'm gonna pick up some stuff that I missed. Since y'all quiet tonight, don't want to participate. Let me mark my time. Let's see, 55 and 30. All right, so backtrack. So when Yahweh came to Abram and told him to separate himself from his familiar, he took Lot, his nephew, with him. And so Lot went with him as well, so forth and so on. And then at some point, there was a famine in Canaan land, and Abram had to go down to Egypt. And he told Sarah, his wife, to tell them that you are my sister, so they wouldn't kill me for your sake. So he told them that they were his sister. They took Sarah to be Pharaoh's wife, and Yahweh plagued Egypt for Sarah, Abram's sake. And then they sent Abraham out of Egypt with great substance, men servants, maid servants, cattle, and things like that. That's actually where Hagar came from. And so they went back to Canaan land. And then some other things transpired, and Yahweh caused a strife between Lot's herdsmen and Abraham's herdsmen. And so Abraham said, if you go to the left, I'll go to the right. If you go to the right, I'll go to the left. So Lot chose Sodom and, Jordan. Well, it was well watered. He chose, Jordan, Sodom, and more things like that. So Yahweh showed Abraham his inheritance and said, walk the length and the breadth of it, all that your eyes can see. It is yours. I'm going to give this land to your seed. And so then when Lot got in trouble, Abraham went to go help Lot, and Abraham went and slaughtered those kings. This is after he had Ishmael, after the promise was given to him, he had Ishmael. He went and slaughtered those kings and rescued his nephew Lot. He didn't take anything from them. He said, I'm not taking even a shoe latchet from you, unless you said he made Abraham rich. The men that are with me, they could have their portion, but that's it. And so then he went back to Canaan land where he came from, but on the way from slaughtering those kings, he met with Melchizedek, and Melchizedek blessed him. Melchizedek was the king and priest of Salem, and he blessed Abraham, and Abraham paid tithes to Melchizedek. And so then that's when Yahweh gave Abraham the covenant of circumcision. Am I missing anything anymore? Whatever. Oh, so another thing in 15th chapter of Genesis, when Yahweh promised him the seed, it said that Abraham believed Yahweh, and that was accounted unto him for righteousness because he believed Yahweh. That's very important too. I missed that part. Separate. So then after he had Ishmael, and then Sarah had Isaac after Ishmael and Abraham was circumcised, and that very next year, at the age of 100, he had Isaac. After Isaac was weaned, Ishmael was mocking Isaac, and Sarah got upset about it. And so she said, cast out this bondwoman and her son. He cannot be heir with my son. And Abraham was hurt by it, but he did have to listen to Sarah. Yahweh said, listen to your wife, Sarah. And so he cast out Ishmael and Hagar when Ishmael was 15 years old. And so then Yahweh told Hagar that he was going to make a prince out of Ishmael, so forth and so on. After that, when time went on, Abraham offered up Isaac like Yahweh told him to do. They went on a 3-day journey. Abraham had offered up Isaac, but then Yahweh, the angel stayed with him. He saw a ram caught in a thicket by his horns. He offered the ram instead. And then that's when, after that, that's when Yahweh said that about Milcah and all that. She had, children, Laban, Rebekah, and all them, whatever. So then Sarah died, and Abraham took another wife, Keturah. Abraham gave gifts to Keturah's children, but he gave all that he had to Isaac. And then when he was old, he had his servant to go to find Isaac a wife, to go back to his homeland to find Isaac a wife of his people. And so when he went and said that Milcah had, children, then the servant went to Milcah. So the servant asked Yahweh to be with him and be specific about, if this is the one for Isaac, then show it to me, blah, blah, blah. So when Rebekah was at the well, some things transpired. Yahweh showed him that Rebekah was the one. and her brother Laban and the rest of them sent Rebekah with the servant. And when Isaac saw her, he was happy. He was, revived from his mom passing away, things so forth and so on. And so he was 40 years old when he took Rebekah to wife. She was barren. She asked Yahweh what was going on with her. And Yahweh, no, after she got pregnant, she asked Yahweh what was going on with her. And Yahweh said, there's two nations warring in our womb. The elder shall serve the younger. So she was told the elder should serve the younger. So after Jacob and Esau were born, then Esau sold his birthright to Jacob because he was in the field hunting. He was feeling faint, and he asked for some pottage. And Jacob said, sell me your birthright for this morsel of bread and pottage. And so he did. Then when it's time for the blessing, Rebekah told Jacob to go ahead and do like I tell you, go get this, fetch this animal, and I'm going to cook it up, make the venison. You put your brother's Esau clothes on and get the blessing. So Jacob received the blessing from from Isaac. He received the blessing, and Esau came in right after, and he cried and cried and cried, said Jacob stole his birthright and his blessing, and do you not have one for me too? And he could not get his blessing. So Jacob, his mother feared that Esau was going to kill him because it was told her that Esau had in his heart to kill him. So she sent him to her brother Laban's house, and that's when he worked 7 years for Rachel, but he ended up getting Leah first. He worked 7 more years for Rachel, and then 6 years for his substance. And then Yahweh gave him those 11 sons by his 2 wives and their 2 handmaidens, and they were on their way back. Laban was pissed off about it, but Yahweh blessed his hands and let them come on back anyway. Then Rachel died while she was giving birth to Benjamin, the last child that he had by Rachel. And so he had the 12 sons of Jacob, and then they had the daughter Dinah by Leah, so forth and so on. And then later on, I forgot about the famine with Isaac's time, same thing happened with them. But anyway, so then after he had his 12 sons, things transpired, so forth and so on. They went back to Canaan land, but on the way back, they met Esau. Jacob thought Esau was going to kill him, so he put everybody in front of him, so forth and so on. He wrestled with the angel, and the angel told him that his name would no longer be called Jacob, it would be Israel. So his name was changed from Jacob to Israel. And that's how you have the 12 sons of Israel, or the 12 tribes of Israel, so forth and so on. Then as time transpired, they were in Canaan land. Joseph, being one of his younger sons, went out to see his brethren like his father sent him to. Well, first he had a dream that the moon and sun and moon, 11 stars were going to give obeisance to him. His father got pissed off about it, but his brothers envied him and wanted to kill him for it. His father favored him more, gave him coat of many colors, so forth and so on. His brothers were out feeding the flock. His 10 brothers were out feeding the flock. And so his father sent him in Dothan to see what was going on with his brethren, but they were somewhere else. And so he went there. When they saw him coming, they said they were going to kill him. They conspired to kill him, but Reuben stood up and said, let's not kill him, but let's, sell him, put him in his hole, so forth and so on. So when Reuben left, they ended up selling Joseph to some Ishmaelites, took his coat of many colors and killed a wild beast, put blood on it, told their father that he had been killed. Israel mourned for his son for a while or whatever, things like that. He went down to Egypt. Joseph was sold to the Ishmaelites. They took him down to Egypt, sold him to Potiphar, the chief executioner of Pharaoh's house. Where am I at right now? I got 3 more minutes, 3 minutes, 15 seconds. All right, so then while he was down there, Yahweh blessed him, and Potiphar's wife wanted to sleep with him. She lied, said he tried to rape her. He was thrown in prison for something he did not do. 1 year passed. Pharaoh's baker and butler were also thrown in prison too. A year passed. They had dreams. Then Joseph interpreted their dreams and told the butler that he would be restored. The baker would be killed. And he told the butler, remember him. 2 years passed, and the Pharaoh had a dream, 2 different dreams, that 7 ears of corn, skinny corn, 8 to 7 ears of fat corn. Same thing with 7 skinny cows, 8 to 7 fat cows, and it didn't get any bigger either way. And so he couldn't interpret his dream. Nobody could. So the butler said, I remember one in prison that interpreted our dreams. He can interpret his dream. So Joseph was 39 years old when he went to Pharaoh and interpreted his dream and told him about the 7 years of plenty, 7 years of famine. And Pharaoh put him head over the storehouses at the time. And then when the great famine came, then that's when his brothers had to come down and buy food from Egypt, and he recognized them, but they did not recognize him. And he sold them food and put their money back in their sack, so forth and so on. So when they got back home, they were scared to go back down to Egypt. When the money ran out, he asked them, told them about, what was going on with their brother and things like that. So the second trip, and they had to leave their brother down there because we asked them, do you have a brother? Do you have a father? And he was like, well, bring your brother back down. The little brother I want to see, make sure y'all not spies. And so the second trip, they came down, they had to bring food or whatever. They had to bring Benjamin with them. And Judah stood up and said, I'll be surety for the child. I'll make sure I bring him back to you, Father. Don't worry about it. I got it. And he was like, if I be deprived of my children, I'll be deprived of my children's goodness gracious. Y'all know they got the woman I really love. And the first one dead. Now you're going to take this one from me too, blah, blah, blah. So they went back down. And at the second trip, he finally Joseph revealed himself to his brothers, and they were afraid. And he said, don't worry about it. Y'all, you meant it for the evil, y'all meant it for the good. For this day of Yahweh saved Israel alive. And so he says, my father will, go back and bring my people, bring them down. So 70 souls of Israel migrated back down into Egypt, and Yahweh gave them the best land, which was Goshen. Joseph was second to Pharaoh at the time. And so they had the best land in Goshen, so forth and so on. So when Joseph died off, Pharaoh that didn't know Joseph died off, just like Yahweh promised Abraham, they began to be evilly entreated. So the Pharaoh that did not know Joseph began to evilly entreat them and make them, serve him. And so the more they afflicted them, the more they multiplied. When they multiplied, he was like, look, these people are more mighty than we are. If they join forces with another nation, they'll overthrow my kingdom. So let's put taskmasters over them and give them hard bondage. And so when he did that, they multiplied even more. And so then, so then after that, that's when he put out the death decree. Well, he sent the Hebrew midwives first to kill the male Hebrew children on their birth stool, but they did not do it. They feared Elohim instead. So then he sent out the death decree to kill all male Hebrew children 2 years old down to birth. And so Moses was being born in this time. His mother hid him for 3 months. She could no longer harm him, so she put him in the ark and placed it in the river. Pharaoh's daughter was out bathing, and my time is got 8 seconds. Pharaoh's daughter was out bathing, and then she saw the ark, had the women that fetched the ark, saw Moses. He cried. She had compassion on him. Said, this is one of the Hebrew children, so forth and so on, and my time is up. All right. I think I covered what I missed. If I did not, I apologize. But anybody want to go next? Micah sounds quiet.
Yeah, I'll go with that. Nobody else wants to.
Okay.
Let me backtrack. I can't remember if you got the part where Jacob wrestled the angel. Here we go.
I did. Yeah, I did.
Oh, wrestled the angel and got his name changed, and his joint was
Yeah,
out.
I did.
Okay.
Yeah, I did. I didn't say the joint was out, but I did say he wrestled the angel and he changed his name. I didn't say anything about the how he was out though.
He saw the vision of the angel ascending and descending. Okay. Also, Dinah got what's the word that they use? I can't remember the word that they use, but this dude when they settled after he met with Esau, after he ran into Esau and everything was good, he bought a parcel of land in Canaan land. I think it was near Shechem or something like that. And there was a guy by the name of Shechem or Hamar, something like that. Can't remember the names are real hazy to me, but he had defiled Dinah. He laid with her, and he wanted to, he had laid with her and had sex with her, and it defiled her, right? So they were upset about it, but the dude wanted to marry her and this, that, and the other, and he wanted their people, his people, to mix with with Jacob or Israel and his people, and that just wasn't in the purpose. So Reuben and I think Simeon, I can't remember which two brothers. I think those two, or Judah. I can't remember, but it
was Simeon and Levi.
Simeon and Levi. Okay, so they said, well, how about this? Yeah, we'll join and be one with your people, this, that, and the other, but you got to circumcise all your people, this, that, and the other, right? And they went ahead, and the guy that wanted to marry Dinah said, hey, we these people are some good people. We'll increase our land and we'll increase our community, this, that, and the other. If we mingle with, if we mix with their people and marry into their this, that, and the other, we'll become larger, whatever. So they all agreed that it was a good thing, and they circumcised themselves. And while they were healing, they were all weak from the circumcising themselves. Levi and Judah went in there and it killed all of them. And this bothered Jacob. This bothered Israel. It bothered him pretty bad because, even though he didn't agree with how those people had handled his daughter, now he now he's worried about, some repercussions from it because of, you know, what his sons had did, killed all these people and this, that, and the other. But I think what in doing that, Yahweh put the fear of them upon those people, so they never sought any payback because of it. You know what I mean, or any justice for those people that they had killed. So, let me see. Fast forward. Let's see. Rachel, she dies, like you mentioned. Well, you got everything else. I'll fast forward back to where Joseph is in Egypt. He's falsely accused. He's in the house of Potiphar, who was at the time the chief executioner in Egypt. He's falsely accused of trying to lay with Potiphar's wife. She falsely accused him because she wanted him, and when he denied her and pushed her away, she grabbed a piece of his clothing and ripped, and she had it in her hand, and she used that as evidence to say that, you know, that he had forced himself onto her. And what they did was throw him in jail. And even then, Yahweh had mercy on him because he had found favor in the sight of the head of the prison. I forget what they called his position, but he was the keeper of the prison, keeper of all the prisons, this, that, and the other. So he put Joseph in charge, you know, of, you know, taking care of the prison. So even though Joseph was in prison, he still had protection there. Yahweh made it, you know, somewhat as comfortable for him, right? Oh yeah, and then the baker and the butler. Yeah, you got to that stuff. Shoot. Let me fast forward. So Joseph is raised from prison because he met the baker and the butler, and he prophesied their dreams, right? How the baker would be killed and how the butler would be restored. So when Pharaoh had this dream that was troubling him, he went ahead and none of his people could interpret the dream for him. So the butler then remembered Joseph after Joseph was in prison for about 3 years there. So they raised Joseph up. I'm sorry, you saying something?
Yeah, I was saying he was in there for 2 more. It was 2 more years that passed, but I had already covered all that. But go ahead.
2 more years. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, but shoot, I lost my train of thought.
But he interpreted the dream. Pharaoh had a dream. And the butler remembered Joseph. Is where you were.
Yeah, so the butler, they raised Joseph up and they brought him up, they cleaned him up and stuff, presented him to Pharaoh. Pharaoh explained his dream. Joseph interpreted. Pharaoh thought that it was good. And then he put Joseph in charge of everything. He was he was second in command to Pharaoh. And Joseph, you know, he managed all the affairs, especially pertaining to the storage of food, right? Because they had to store food because the great famine is coming, right? So they stored a bunch of food, and then the famine came, which caused Joseph's family, who was in Canaan land, which his brothers had, you know, sold them off, whatever. His brothers initially came down to buy food because there was a great famine. Jacob had sent them down into Egypt because they had heard that there was food in Egypt. So he sent them down there with money to try to get it. And Joseph recognized his brothers immediately, but his brothers did not recognize him. And his dream was, you know, pretty much that they cast him out, you know, sold him off for was coming and, you know, was actually coming to pass. So he didn't let them know who he was. And they had some, you know, I can't remember. The events is all mingled up as far as my memory, but I know that he gave them a hard time, you know, because he wanted them because he asked them what their, you know, their occupation was, and he accused them of being spies, and, you know, asked them about who their father was and if he's still alive and this, that, and the other. So it was one of the brothers So he had made it so where he kept one of the brothers. I think it was Simeon. He held on to one of them while they went back to bring, because he wanted to see the little brother, because he asked about Benjamin as well, because he had asked questions in a way to where they had to tell him about Benjamin. So Israel, when they went back, they left Simeon with him as they suggested, and he put the money that they paid for the food. He put the money back in their purses. So as they got back, they were like, wait, didn't we give him money, this, that, and the other? So they were troubled by that. And after they explained everything, what happened to their father Israel, and how they have to go back down into to get their brother Simeon, and they have to take Benjamin with them to show proof, this, that, and the other. And their father was really vexed by this, and he said, "Look, I've already lost one son, and if I lose another." If Benjamin, dies, they, kill him, or something happened to him, I'm pretty much going to die. The gray hairs, he mentioned, I forget how he phrased it, but he said, I'll go to the grave with the gray hairs on my head and whatnot, right? So Judah, he intervened and said, he made a promise that nothing going to happen, and he was going to, make sure everything was good, and basically putting his neck on the line for that. So some time had passed. They with the food that they had, then they ran out. So he told him to go back, and he reminded his father that, hey, this dude is not going to see us unless we come back with Benjamin. So they took Benjamin, and they went down there and to see Joseph again. And by the way, I forgot to mention Joseph. They gave Joseph a wife, and he had 2 sons by this time, Ephraim and Manasseh. So they go back and see Joseph, and he again, they have dinner and this, that, and the other, and they have, he meets he's holding back the tears. He's getting choked up at different times, and this, that, and the other when he sees his brother, because he's so, at these different times he'll retreat back to his private quarters to, cry it out when he saw his little brother. And then he goes back out into them when he gets himself together. And, they were mentioning, so he comes up with a plan to have his brother just stay there with him, his little brother Benjamin. And they say, look, we can't, if we don't go back to Canaan land with our brother Benjamin, it's going to kill kill our father. He's literally going to die. This is going to kill him. It's going to send him to his grave. And that was like the straw that broke the camel's back, and Joseph just started crying, and they were looking like, whoa, what the heck is going on? And he had, I think it was just him and his brothers. He made sure all the Egyptians were out. He told them to leave, this, that, and the other. And he revealed himself to his brethren, and they were initially very, very afraid because of what they had done. You know what I mean?
Okay, time is up. All right, very good. All right. Anybody else? We'll wrap it up. Okay. Because I think I had got up to Moses being raised in Pharaoh's daughter's house is where I got to. I was still in Exodus, the 2nd chapter, I believe. So we're right at the end. If I'm going to finish that up, I can finish it up. Because I think the only thing I missed, I think, was Ephraim and Manasseh. I forgot about that part. But got to Moses, Pharaoh's daughter saw the ark. She fetched the ark. and she recognized he was a Hebrew child. So Moses' sister stepped in and said, "This is one of the Hebrew children. You will take him to be weaned by one of the Hebrew women for you." And so she said, "Go, I'll pay her wages." So Moses' mother was paid to wean her own child. Once Moses was weaned, he grew up in Pharaoh's daughter's house. And when he was 40 years old, he went to be amongst his Hebrew brethren. And he saw an Egyptian smiting a Hebrew. And Moses interceded, and he ended up killing the Egyptian, buried him in the sand. The very next day, he went out strolling again. He saw two Hebrews quarreling. He interceded again. The one that was in the wrong, he said, "Why smitest thou thy fellow?" And the one in the wrong said, "Who made you a prince and a judge over us? Are you going to kill me like you did that Egyptian yesterday?" And so Moses saw that thing was out. He fled from Egypt and ended up going to Midian. And that's where went to a well and saw 7 women watering their flocks at the well with some shepherds hindering them. He interceded again and drove the shepherds off. He watered the girls' flock for them. They went home early, and their father Ruel said, "How did you home so early?" And they said, "The Egyptian helped us," because Moses had Egyptian clothes on. And he said, "Where is the man? I want to meet him. Go get him. Why'd you leave him?" And so they went and got Moses. He broke bread with Ruel, and that's when they found out he was not an Egyptian, but he was actually a Hebrew. And so he was content to dwell in Midian with Ruel, and he married Zipporah and had 2 sons by Zipporah. He began to keep the flock of his father-in-law, and that's where we stopped. And it's the 2nd chapter, and that's where we stopped for our whole assignment. So we did it. We were able to get from Exodus the 3rd chapter all the way through in order. Yay, very good. Thank y'all for participating, the ones who participated. All right, so our assignment for the next class is to continue where we left off at. So now that we got all 3 trips of Moses out of the way, we're going to go back and pick up the Exodus the 34th chapter and read, let me see where we're stopping at. Exodus 34. Where's my book at? Any questions or anybody else got anything they want to ask? Did I miss anything? Did we miss anything that somebody saw that we didn't complete? No.
Were the prophecies that Jacob and stuff gave to each of his sons covered?
I don't think so, no.
Oh.
You know, cover it?
Well, I can't quote word for word with what Jacob had, before he had died. He had mentioned that that he wanted to bless his sons accordingly. So with Reuben, Reuben, he had slept with Leah's handmaid, which was one of his brother's mother. I can't remember which children she had, but so his blessing, he was kind of, it kind of was a dark shadow hanging over him. But he said Judah. I know specifically the ones that highlight stick out. Judah, the scepter shall not depart from Judah. He also said that he made Joseph's children, which were Ephraim and Manasseh, he blessed them, but Ephraim was the one, even though he was the younger, he was the one who received the greater blessing, so to speak. But he blessed them in a way that they would receive the inheritance and they were going to be his children. So therefore, when you had the 12 tribes of Israel, you had the tribe of Ephraim and Manasseh because of that blessing that Jacob had given to Manasseh and Ephraim. And so that's, it's a whole bunch of other stuff with, he had mentioned with Joseph and this, that, and the other, he should be as a fruitful bow and whatnot. Also, Joseph, he had said, he had prophesied that Yahweh is going to deliver them, out of that land where they're strangers at in Egypt, and that to take his bones with them when they, carry him out. Also, and there's a principle in that. But Israel, they didn't bury him in Egypt. They buried him in Canaan land, which is also another important fact where he buried him with his father. So I'll leave. I'll cut it off there.
Okay, very good. All right, so for those of you who joined us a little late, so what we were doing, last several classes, we've been going in order for Moses' 3 trips. And so we started at Exodus, the 3rd chapter, and read all the way to the 24th chapter, and then picked it up where Moses got the vision on top of the mount, the 7 days of creation, Genesis, the 1st chapter, and back to Exodus, the 25th chapter, all the way to the 34th chapter with Moses' 3rd trip. And so when we got to the 3rd trip, we went back to Genesis, the 2nd chapter, and picked up everything Moses saw and wrote from Genesis, the 2nd chapter, to Exodus, the 2nd chapter. And that's where we left off with our assignment. And so what we were doing tonight is just recapping everything that we've read and gone over. And so we were doing 10-minute increments and trying to see if we could remember all of the things that transpired in the order that it was shown to Moses. And so that's what we were doing, is practicing 10-minute increment time limit. So in an hour, less than an hour and a half, we were able to go through Exodus, the 3rd chapter, all the way through the 3 trips that Moses took in less than an hour and a half. So I think that's actually, and we covered a lot of details, actually most of the details of it. So I think that was really good. And the whole point of the exercise, anyway, is the when we're actually giving a testimony, or when something is being spoken or whatever, y'all, we can actually use what's in the law and prophets that you have to build upon those things and reveal more things to you about the deeper meanings of it and how the Messiah fulfilled these things. Because had you not read it, or didn't know what was in it, you wouldn't know what the Messiah was doing. So just practicing actually helps make the giving a testimony easier, because you have 10 minutes, and you can get a lot out in 10 minutes. And so when we have 30 minutes, if we're disciplined enough, we can get a really strong message out in even 30 minutes, because we're practicing and things like that. So that's the whole point of the exercise. So thank you, few people that participated. I would appreciate you guys. And so we're going to start at Exodus, the 34th chapter. I'm going to start back there again and read all the way to, let's see. We'll just read to the 40th chapter, and then we'll have some questions and answers. So 34 through 40 of Exodus, we'll finish Exodus, and then we'll figure out if we're going to go to Leviticus or Numbers after we finish Exodus. So 34 through 40 is our reading assignment for Exodus 34 through 40 for next class. Any questions? Any comments? I think we did good. That was really good. I expected it to take longer than that. That was really good. We got through it real quick. All right. Well, that's it. We're going to end class a little early tonight, then, so I don't have anything else for y'all to do. So thank you guys for participating again. I look forward to the next time we meet on Monday. Oh, let me do the announcement. Sorry. Hold on. Announcement. We do have lecture-based classes every Sunday and every Wednesday from 10 a.m. to 12 noon on Sunday, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Central Time on Wednesday. Both classes have the same Zoom link. They're both live streamed on YouTube. The Basics and Foundation class is every other Monday from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Central Time. And our private lesson class has been moved to every opposite Thursday of the Basics and Foundation class. That class is recorded, but it's not posted. That class is from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. Central Time. The Basics and Foundation class is live streamed on YouTube. It has a separate Zoom link than the Sunday, Wednesday, and private lessons class. If anybody wants to join us live, you can always send us an email at meridiansoul, SOHL, at gmail.com, or IDMR, meridianms, at gmail.com, or just send me a text message if you have my number. Our website is www.soulfood.org. That's SOHL food.org. There are some pamphlets, transcripts, audio lectures, so forth and so on, a whole bunch of different tools and stuff that we can use to learn about our Heavenly Father. If nothing else, we'll conclude with the doxology taken from the last 2 verses of the book of Jude. Now unto him that is able to keep you from falling and to present you faultless before the presence of his glory with exceeding joy. To the only wise Elohim, our Savior, through Yahshua the Messiah, our Sovereign, belong glory and majesty, dominion and power, both now and ever. Let us all say hallelujah.
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 All right, thank you.
Hallelujah.